Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here, and my guest today is Chin Matthews. Hi, Chin.
Hi everyone, how are you doing?
So I love having you here. And basically, when I was looking at your page, you're a somewhat recent designer, right?
Yes, I just released my first pattern, the sloop beanie in God, time does not make sense anymore, but it was January of 2021.
Right.
So about a year now, yeah.
But you've been knitting since you were a kid.
Yes. I want to say I started knitting when I was around 10, 11. I can't remember the exact date, but yeah, I went to this kind of progressive elementary school, and they gave us an option of going to English class or learning how to knit, and I definitely chose how to knit. So ever since then, I've just like fallen in love with
Do you
fiber
remember
arts.
that class? Like, do you remember the first class having those needles in your hands? Like, was it difficult for you to learn? Do you remember the process of learning?
I honestly picked it up pretty quickly. I mean, for some reason, fiber arts and just like working with strings of various shapes and forms just came naturally to me, kind of. But I remember sitting in the class, we had chopsticks. So we made our own knitting needles with chopsticks and put some like rubber bands at the end so that our stitches wouldn't fall off. And I remember our first project was a bookmark. It was only 4 stitches per row, and so I made the first one, and I made a couple more, and yeah, just fell in love with knitting after that.
Do you by chance still have those bookmarks somewhere?
No, I don't have the bookmarks, but I do have my first ever cable project. I know I that was like the first time I really got motivated about knitting. I went to this how to knit cables class, and it was funny because everyone else was, I want to say like 50 plus of women, and I was just there, this little kid at what, like 12 probably, learning how to cable knit. But yeah.
Did you like how did you learn like different techniques? Did you used to go to the classes? Did you used to look at YouTube? Like what was your learning process?
Yeah. I went to, well, obviously that one class, but I honestly learned a lot through books or through YouTube as it started to come into prominence back in the day. So, um, but yeah, I'm also really lucky in the fact that I can get a lot of information from books easily, or like retain it easily. So, yeah, I had a lot of books. They're still at my mom's house,
Right.
collecting dust probably in the garage. But yeah, I have a good library of knitting books, I would say.
How would you decide like which book to buy? Like you coming to the bookstore or like you're going online to look through books, like what would catch your eye? What would make it worth buying?
Honestly, I think it depended on like what I wanted to make. So, and also just like general reference books. I would say I'd actually go for reference books a lot, like Knitting for Dummies is one I know I have for sure. And then sorry, I don't, this there's a book called Stitch and B Word. I don't want to curse on your channel, but they did have some good books about knitting that was like a general overview of how to knit, different tips and tricks for making your knits look great, instead of like they said, I think instead of homemade it looks handmade.
Right.
So yeah, I like a jack of all trades kind of knitting book.
Right. So now you actually teaching knitting, teaching beginning knitting. Do you
Yes.
find it easy to teach? Because like I can knit.
Uh-huh.
I have very big trouble teaching somebody else how to knit because I need like certain way and then it's not necessarily working for everyone. Was it
Yeah,
easy like for you to teach?
definitely not. Knitting and teaching are for sure, like you said, a different skill entirely. So I teach a knitting class at my work as part of our wellness initiative, because there's a lot of evidence-based science behind crafting in a bimodal form with both hands and how it increases well, prevents, excuse me, cognitive decline in those with like dementia or Alzheimer's.
Right.
And then it also lowers your heart rate. It can reduce the chances of arthritis and a couple other things that I'm blanking on right now. But anyway, so I taught a couple classes at work to help my colleagues like de-stress during their days. Sorry, I forgot to say, I work at a non-health or a non-profit health clinic.
Right.
So we need a lot of chances to take care of compassion fatigue and burnout and things like that. So I think knitting is a helpful skill for that for sure. But back to your question, yes, knitting and teaching knitting are really hard. Or like a different skill. I remember when my first class I had, actually Christine Vehar and Adrian Rodriguez of Verve for Keeping Warm. They sponsored the class and gave me some gifts that I raffled off at the end of the class. And then they also attended the first class and helped me out. Um, yeah, it was definitely an experience. I had to have Christine help me with some of the other people that I couldn't get to because there was a good amount, I would say 16 people that joined. And then, yeah, the biggest issue that I always have whenever I'm teaching class is how to teach someone to do a slip knot. Because for me, I just like take the yarn and it's there, but I'm like, how do I explain this to someone? It's a very interesting conundrum that I always find myself in.
Have you ever met somebody you couldn't teach?
I would say no. Everybody can learn how to knit. Um, Not everybody's going to be as skilled as it as easily as some others, but you just have to find a way to connect to them, I think, and bring it down to their or bring it to their world view in some kind of way, like through metaphors, analogies, things like that.
Well, you mentioned that like all the benefits, health benefits of knitting, right?
Yes.
When you knit, do you
Mhm.
ever get frustrated, aggravated with knitting? Do you ever get anxious? Do you ever get under pressure with knitting? Or is it
Oh, all
just
the
like
time. I
smoking?
mean, yeah, I think all the time. Well, mainly, I have issues with like I feel like the worst for me is tangled yarn. Of course, always gets me really irritated, and then counting and like making sure that I have the right stitch numbers also can get me a little irritated. I remember I was working on an asymmetrical shawl or triangle shawl for the first time, and this was like a year ago during the pandemic, and I just like could not get my head around the increases and decreases and had to restart several times before I could get the right stitch numbers and like remember the increases on which side is which. So yeah, I'm a work in progress too. Like I don't know everything in knitting and I'm still learning new techniques. So when I do learn a new technique, there can be some friction there for sure, but I just try to put it down, maybe take a little break and then come back and try it again.
So like, okay, you go from just sitting home, knitting for relaxation, like learning some new stuff, to deciding to become a designer. And when you announce to the world that you are a designer, it comes with certain level of responsibilities because suddenly you have to answer people's question, you have to like explain when they don't understand something, you have to make sure it's tested properly, pictures taken, marketed, and all that good stuff. What possessed you basically to decide to go into design?
Um, well, I would say that I've always, or for like a good portion of my adult life, and even when I was a kid in like high school and whatnot, I had a real interest in fashion and just like how clothes relate to presenting yourself in the world and how others will perceive you in those clothes. So I think that's what really drove me to um, work as a designer, a knitwear designer, because I wanted to make things that people would feel good about and feel empowered by wearing them, and then also to help with the or raise awareness about fast fashion and how detrimental it can be to the environment, and then how fulfilling slow fashion can be um, in terms of like mental health and like physical health, and then also again for the environment.
So I heard you somewhere talking about the slow fashion and how like your goal was to have quarter of what you wear handmade. Like, did
Yes.
you ever get to that goal?
Okay, so this actually, um, no, I have not yet. This is a group actually at Verve for Keeping Warm. They have a monthly meeting called Seam Allowance. And basically, it's trying to work towards having 25% of your closet be handmade or slow fashion. So, and honestly, in the long run, I don't know how much or excuse me, individual action will actually solve climate change. It is like um, something that needs to be dealt with like corporations and like the government and things like that. But I do think that we need like top down and bottom up pressure to be able to enact these changes. So I think that or seam allowance was a good way to have that like bottom up pressure to get people thinking more intentionally about their relationship with clothes, how they get them, and then what that they're paying for when they're really buying a garment.
Right. Talking about like paying for what you're buying, did you have problem with like coming up with the pricing for your patterns?
Yes, I mean, it's something that I go back and forth on a lot. Um, I do think that there's a lot of inconsistencies in the knitwear design space that relate to designers and artists not being paid enough. But then I also realize that there are a lot of people that might want to get into knitting or are knitters who are more financially constrained in the amount that they can spend on patterns and yarn. So I try to make my patterns um, monetarily accessible while also making sure that I'm getting compensated at least for the like cost of the work that I'm doing in my design. So yeah, it's something I go back and forth on, but I think I found a good middle ground with most of it, but we'll see in the future if that changes.
Right. Was it difficult to market your designs? Did you find that like who was helping you to market it, or how did you approach the marketing of your first design?
I mean, honestly, most people's on Instagram. I'm not gonna lie, or well, a lot of people are on Instagram, obviously. But I was also in the Swatch Studio program, or I still am, with hosted by Frenchie Denoy of Aurora Knits on Instagram, and so she helped a lot. Her program and like how to design, write up a pattern, market your pattern, and price it and everything like that was really helpful for me. And I got a scholarship into the program, which was really nice. And then also a Verb for Keeping Warm, who gave me yarn support for this beanie, which was my first design. And also they like released a special colorway for me, which was really nice. And so they definitely helped a lot
Right.
with that release and getting people's eyes on the pattern for sure.
How comfortable are you putting yourself out there and advertising yourself?
I'm not the best, honestly, but we all have things we need to work on, right? I do not like to brag necessarily, and I'm also like trying to navigate the space of like including more of my personal life on my Instagram because I feel like it's kind of like a not obligation, but like if you want to be successful, people kind of want to know what you're doing with your life too as well. So I'm trying to find more helpful ways for me to bring people into my life and like design process and things like that, while also maintaining a level of privacy just on my own, or the level of privacy that I need. So yeah, I think I'm gonna try and start doing a little more reels. on Instagram because those are becoming much more prioritized. But transitioning into that space has left me a little wary of how to do it the best way while keeping it authentic to my design journey and also just artwork in general.
Right. Well, when people buy from you, do you think they buy because they love the design, or do you think they buy your patterns because they admire you, respect you, want to support you? Like, is it about the design or is it about you?
You know, I'm not exactly sure. I would want to say that my designs are, um, or that is more for the design and like making the garment. But I mean, it could be people that are just admiring me. But for my first two patterns, I tried a lot to translate style that like a lot of people normally wear or that I see out in the world to hand knitting and make it more accessible for people to like make the gifts. And then also some of them were like where I draw inspiration from were so expensive and just made no sense to pay that much for like a beanie or something like that. So I made it more affordable with the patterns. So I would say that more people buy it for the pattern and the garment that they can make from it than necessarily me,
Can we
which
talk
is what I
about
have found.
your can we talk about your uncle for a second? So he
Okay, yeah.
created that label that your hats are famous for, with the guy pointing
Yes.
at his chin. Tell me the story of that label.
So I knew kind of soon after I was like in the Instagram knitting world for a little bit that I did want to design, and it was something that called me, or I was called to do. I feel like um, in some ways. So I wanted to make a logo, honestly, because I didn't want my face associated with all my designs and work like that. So um, when I went to college, everybody started calling me Chin, and I started to um, enforce, but introduce myself as Chin and like make more people use my nickname than my government name. So one thing that I encountered was that people didn't really think I was saying Chin. They would think I was saying like Chen with an E or like Shane or Sean, a bunch of other things. So I would always point to my chin and say, like your chin, that's me. So I wanted, when I was looking for a logo, I was like, that's the perfect idea to do. And I was kind of like inspired by the Obey logo. I don't know if Andre the Giant is pretty popular. And so I was thinking in that vein of style. And then my uncle is at, or is a, what's it called? Career artist and graphic designer. So I explained exactly what I wanted to him, and then he just like whipped it up really quickly for me. So I'm super grateful for that.
No, it's very cool, actually. I really like.
Thank you.
So what are you working on right now? Because there is something that's gonna come out as soon as this interview is being published, basically at the same time. So tell me about that secret right now project.
Yes, well, it's not too secret, but my modern mud cloth sweater is out as of now. I was inspired by mud cloth that my parents had in their houses and their spaces, an African textile that was based or created, excuse me, in Mali. The Malian people would use fermented mud to dye the fabric, and they would include different geometric designs, which are like reminiscent of the motifs in my sweater, which helped to guide the look and feel of it. It's also my first sweater pattern, so I'm a little bit nervous about how it's going to do. But there's been like a large amount of excitement and buzz around it. So hopefully it'll fill a need in people's closets, and then they'll be wanting to make the pattern as well.
What was the learning progress like for grading that pattern? Was it difficult to learn? Like, where what sources were you looking at?
Well, so one of the biggest issues I ran into was that I don't or I couldn't really find that many like standardized size charts for men or masculine presenting people, which was kind of the biggest issue for me. I kind of like cobbled together a bunch of them to be able to grade over what 16 sizes. So that was definitely the hardest. But then since the pattern is worked all over the sweater in color work, there are a few places where I knew I had to cut off the pattern somewhat abruptly because for 16 sizes, it would just take a ridiculous amount of time and cause more confusion. I think if I wrote everything out perfectly for each of the sizes. And so I think I found some a creative solution to that problem. But yeah, I would say cobbling together those size charts were definitely the hardest part of grading it.
How easy was for you to find the test knitters for those 16 sizes?
Yeah. So I did not get all the 16 sizes because I'm newer to Instagram. Not as many people know me, so it was a little difficult getting all of those. Or well, I couldn't get all sizes, but anyway, those who did reach out had either tested for me before or there's a couple new people. So I could have used another service or like reach out to another account. One I know like Fat Test Knits is really good and they do a lot of re-sharing of people's testing calls. I was going to do that, but I just felt that I would go ahead with what I had. So I'm also going to be making one of the larger sizes soon, just to like make sure it's 100% correct. Um, but I think that uh, I have a wide enough range of testers now that the pattern will be pretty well graded, so that everybody gets a fit that they desire.
Right. Are you like surprised by the color choices of your testers?
No, not particularly. Most of them are black and white, which is a little boring. But one of my testers is doing a gorgeous, like Sedona-y kind of brown with white. That looks really good. And I also randomly saw this, what's it called, mud cloth tape, washi tape, and it was blue and white, which looked really cool. So I'm thinking that I might make an indigo version um, of the sweater as well.
How much do you wanna like, because I feel like that sweater has a story of your personal background in it. How much
Yes.
of it do you wanna write in the pattern? Like when people write romance of the pattern, right? Like when they
Yeah.
put the information, how much information are you thinking of putting in that part of the pattern?
Yeah. I've kind of been wrestling with this for a while. There is a certain field of thought that would say that my use of the mudcloth motifs um, is somewhat of cultural appropriation, just because I didn't grow up in Africa or in Mali and have extensive interactions with the people there. So um, I personally thought of this from the first day that I thought of design, but then there was some other rumblings in the knitting world that were suggesting that it was appropriation as well. So um, I feel a little torn about it at the moment, but I think what I'm going to do is write some more about the history and the pattern itself to give justice to the Malian people who created this textile arts and help celebrate and educate them as a people so that people who are wearing the pattern and making it will be not like beholden to them, but they will take into account the cultural um, implications of wearing that art.
Right. I mean, what's your feeling? And it's like it's again like you've been struggling with it. I'm also like sort of wondering about it. There is sort of, because the world is became so global now,
Mhm,
there is some people, there are people who want to keep the culture pure, right? There was like I'm knitting different kinds of lace, and when I was trying to learn how to do Orenburg lace, I felt that when I was trying to find information about it, it was very difficult to find. And when I was asking people who actually knit Orenburg lace in Russia, like because I speak fluent Russian, so I was like
mhm,
trying to get the information. They were like, well, if you don't know that, it's not for you.
mhm.
And I feel like that's also like the way, like when people trying to protect the information to keep it pure, it also the fastest way to kill that information, because it's like limits you to the amount of exposure to the world, right? And today it's such a global world, and like people move from one place to another, and people get influenced by another cultures. Like, do you feel really guilty about it, or is it part of the, progression and part of the evolution basically of all these arts?
Well, I mean, I agree. I think it is just like the evolution of globalization, and also just like social media technology allows us to be in contact frequently with people that are halfway across the planet that we normally don't have access to. So that's my thinking. And the other thing is that, like, even before globalization and all these things, my parents had had mudcloth in their houses since I was a kid. So it wasn't really like I was just learning about mudcloth and then decided, oh, I want to do a sweater with this. It was a integral part of my childhood and um, childhood experience that I wanted to bring forward and share
Right.
with the knitting community. So yes, I agree that globalization definitely makes it um, easier for people to share their crafts with others. But yeah, there definitely is gatekeeping as well, and keeping it like sacrosanct, I think, and so that it doesn't get like impurified, quote unquote.
Right. I mean, I feel like that's one of the reasons I ask you about how public you are with yourself, right? Because it's like if people know the background of your story, then it makes more sense, right? Like
Sure.
they know that's how you grew up. Like if you sharing yourself and your experiences, then they know why this thing came into your life.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, that part, or like my inspiration for fiber arts and like pretty fiber arts relating discussions, I don't feel at all bad about sharing with Instagram and the world. But I was just thinking about like more kind of like day-to-day activities, or just like here's what I'm doing with my career path in life kind of things.
Right.
Um, I like to keep closer to my chest than um, a lot of people on Instagram, but that can change as well too. I think there's a couple barriers in my life that keep me from wanting to do that. But as I grow older and like change, like it could definitely be. I could definitely share more of my life and like my career and all that good kind of good stuff.
Right. Well, you mentioned that you basically didn't knit in public for the longest time because you weren't comfortable with it. Are you
Yeah.
comfortable with it now? Is it also like some
Oh
sort
yeah.
of progression?
Oh no, I'm in public all the time now. It was mainly because I'm bisexual, so I didn't come out until after college. So basically, my thinking behind not knitting in public was that I didn't want people to think that I was gay or homosexual, which was an erroneous thought on my part. But after having come out, I'm just like, I don't really care. No one's gonna mess with me anyway. And if they did, I also have knitting needles in my hands at all times.
Well, talking
But then,
about not messing with you, you've been doing karate also, right? Like as a
oh yes, I did. I did karate for 13 years. So yeah, definitely not. the right person to start a fight with on Bart or something like that. But I do most of my knitting is or that's outside of the house is on Bart, our subway system in the Bay Area. So yeah, I definitely don't have an issue with it. And sometimes there'll be people that'll or not anything negative, but they'll just say, "Oh, what are you making? I used to crochet in it," or like my daughter does it, blah 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 blah. So I think it's a nice conversation starter, and you can meet a lot of interesting people that way as well.
Right. Well, coming back to the karate, like
Uh-huh.
very athletic activity, right? Like
Mhm.
it's very intense versus sitting and knitting. Like how those two parts combine in you, how like you have that karate kid living with the knitting kid.
So I'm a big proponent of finding balance and making sure that you're well versed or well rounded experience as a person. So I've like learned just like through my life that the three things I need really to succeed are intellectual stimulation, physical stimulation, and then also like an artistic kind of like creative or stimulation. So intellectual I get most of the time from like school or work. Physical, I did karate, and then I also was an avid dancer, tap in hip hop for a long time, and then knitting or crocheting, making lanyards with boondoggle, I think it's called, or whatever art and string craft that I could get my hands on for the artistic simulation. So yeah, I really often operate the most efficiently when I have like all three going in some balance throughout my week.
Right. So what's your vision for yourself? Like what's your ambition for this year? Where do you see yourself pushing towards?
Um, definitely with this pattern release, which is um, well, will have happened by now. But I think that for me, I think that I need to like learn more about opening up to Instagram and like sharing more of my life that I feel comfortable with, and like dedicating more time to my creative pursuits in the form of like reels or like more tutorials or videos and things like that. So my goal for this year is to get more comfortable with being uncomfortable, so that I can push past some of these barriers that I have and
Right.
really share my work and art with as many people as I can.
Well, I saw your picture with Steven West on Instagram, and Steven is also a dancer. And so, like,
Yes,
he often does some sort of dancing thingy when he's advertising his patterns.
yes.
Are you planning on combining those two features for yourself as well, modeling your sweater while dancing?
I mean, it's a possibility in the future. I don't know how frequently I will do it, but I definitely think for like a headshot or just like pictures of me that I can post, definitely. But yeah, that's one thing I need to really work on is like feeling worthy, quote unquote, enough to represent the brand just by myself, or like modeling a pattern myself on the cover. So yeah, I'll definitely have to work at that. But yes, even does some amazing shoots with his dance and combined with the knitting. It's definitely like an inspiration, but we'll see if my similar works will turn out the same, or I might go a little bit of a different direction.
Right. Um, so you like I got introduced to you through Dikov Nico, and
Yes,
we've been friends for a while also, and like we've met actually at Rhinebeck together. And he's a wonderful guy. Like I really admire his knitting knowledge and his enthusiasm for creating the knitting community.
yes.
What did you get out of Instagram? Like, what is the best thing for you on social media?
Honestly, it's like the biggest benefit for me is like being connected to so many really talented fiber artists who make me want to challenge myself and create better and more striking patterns. So after the pandemic and like everything else, I think I just moved really closely to using Instagram as like a coping mechanism, kind of. So I switched to a full knitting Instagram, and honestly, it's just like really helpful to be able to see all the amazing work that other people are doing that inspire me to do work on my own. So yeah, I think it's definitely like a way to challenge myself and inspire myself to find different designs or put forth different designs.
Right. Does it ever depress you, like to see other people, like other designers, being super successful, popping those patterns like once a week or something, and like
Yeah.
selling them in crazy amounts? Like, does that ever frustrate you or makes you feel insecure?
I mean, a little bit. I think a lot of people that want to breach into knitwear design do with this in some shape or form as they come into their designing career. I will say I definitely had that issue. It was mainly tied to being like, oh, this one pattern is going to catapult me into the knitting hall of fame or like into success. But I had to like remind myself that no, this is more of a journey. You need to put out more things so that people know you, and so that you can grow your reputation and just like increase the general knowledge about yourself and your pattern. So I've taken steps to like correct myself when I'm thinking like, oh, this is gonna be so good, it's gonna be the best pattern ever, and everybody's gonna love it. To more like, let's just make progress. Um, I don't think I would really design too many things I don't really like myself. Whether other people like it is up to them. So I'm just trying to focus on growing my brand and how I want to evolve and progress more so than trying to compare myself with others on Instagram who've been having wildly different circumstances and opportunities.
Well, how far in advance are you planning? Like, as of right now, like this sweater is coming out. Like, do you already have next design and next design and next design in mind?
No, at all. And I first started thinking about this design in I want to say August of 2021. And then I started swatching and making the sweater, and then realized my first sample of the sweater I had several issues that needed to correct. So I just finished the second sample, which I'm a lot happier with. And that will obviously, the pattern will reflect the second sample more than the first. Um, but yeah, this pattern definitely took a lot of more energy than the hats, in that each sweater took me a while to complete, and then unlike the hats, you can't just whip it out in like a couple of days or a week or something like that. So
Well,
um,
I mean, do you feel like as a designer, right, you have these two parts to you? You have the artistic part that the inspiration came in the shower while you were thinking about something else, and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be my next masterpiece, right? Versus what would be easy to make, fast to make, will attract wide majority because it's easy and fast and sell better, right? So you can
yeah.
have something very complicated like a sweater, or you can have something very simple, quick to work as a hat. Do you stop yourself from going one way or another? Do you consider that, or you just go with what came to you?
That's a great question because I feel like um, none of my, well, except for I guess the dipole beanie, which is a little easier. The other two patterns, the buttermilk cloth and the slip beanie, are not very easy when they're knitting. I was more focused on the finished project and like the garment that you'll get from it, or accessory. So um, there was a time earlier in my career when I was like trying to figure out how to do the sloop beanie, but I couldn't find the right stitch in knitting that would make it look like it does. And so I wanted to do a like home goods kind of pattern set with like, I don't know, some like coasters, like washcloths, things like that. But then a friend of mine was saying that these kind of things are a little too easy and a little too boring, which I kind of agree, at least for right now. To be such a new designer, I didn't want to go that route of easiness or just like easiness overall. I really wanted to focus on what I think of stylistically and aesthetically, that the accessory or pattern or garment can give to a person. So yeah, I definitely think I'm more focused on how the pattern looks on the person when it's finished than necessarily posting a easy pattern that might do better.
Right. Well, if it comes to your own personal knitting,
Uh-huh.
you gravitate towards something simple, or do you always want some new intellectual challenge in knitting, learning new technique, learning new stitch? Like, what's your approach?
So it depends. I will say that for sure I have different knitting projects for different moods. If I'm feeling like really stressed, um, and I just like don't have that much energy, it'll be something that's super simple, that's mainly just stockinette, or something I don't have to like count that much for. And then if I have like more energy or like I'm pretty energized, that's when I try to do my like lace knitting or like knitting with like complicated charts and things like that. It'll be enough to keep me engaged and also fulfilled in like my creative space.
Right.
So yeah, it definitely depends on my mood, I would say.
Do you have ever a mood when you like, why am I even doing this? Let me just concentrate on my career, quit all of this nonsense and move to something else.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's healthy to take breaks from anything. Moderation is always key in like literally anything you do in life, in my opinion. Um, I would say that um, there are times, like actually, I just went kind of through a time after finishing the second sample of the modern mud cloth sweater. I was like drained and just like I don't even want to knit anything. I can't think about doing it right now. Um, but I mean, it didn't last too long. It was only like 3 days, and then I forced myself to start another project and have been working on it pretty like not fervently. Well, yeah, fervently, I guess. Trying to get it done, but yeah, it will come sometimes, but it doesn't last
Right.
long, honestly.
So you also mentioned like on Instagram a few times that a lot of things that you made go like they were made as gifts for others.
Hmm.
That's how like at the beginning you were starting knitting for others.
Yes.
Do other people ever make you something? Like have anybody ever made you a handmade gift?
Yes, actually, yeah. Well, there's mainly one friend, my friend Miranda. We went to high school together, and then she's also into like clay, what's that, pottery, and like making live or not live, making resin based projects and things like that. So she actually just gave me a like catch-all tray with that was made out of resin and like gold foil and some flowers that she picked in her garden. So that was really sweet. She also, I mean, I guess this is kind of handmade. She has like a glow forge, I think it's called. It's like a laser cutter, and she made me a keychain with my logo on it, which was really sweet. So
Right.
um, I would say, yeah, she's the main one that gives me handmade gifts. But otherwise, not all my friends are that crafty, or I have a couple friends who are like draw that love to draw or like paint, um, but haven't gotten gifts
Right.
from them yet.
Well, hopefully they listen to this interview and they'll know what they have to do now.
Yeah.
Who is the most need-worthy person in your life?
I don't know. Hmm. gonna say I can't choose. I try to say, I mean, if I had the time, money, and patience to make something for everyone I met, I probably would. But I guess people that are the most noteworthy will, those who will actually appreciate it, and like wear it and like cherish it. I think is probably the most important part. But otherwise, I know for so many people, um, I really feel like it's a tangible way of like creating magic in the world. These things are important and they're special, just made for that person, and they'll last for a long time if they treat it right, and can be like even given to their children or passed down for generations, things like that.
Have you made any heirloom that you wouldn't give to anybody that you're gonna keep always with you?
That's funny because the first sample of my month cloth sweater, I think I'm gonna keep. It doesn't. The yoke isn't right, and funnily enough, I also realized after I finished the sweater that I used two different whites as a contrasting color. So
Right.
one of them is called cream, and one of them is just white. So I couldn't really use it for that reason. So I think I'm going to keep that and put it in a shadow box to like hang in my apartment.
Well, I mean, are you a perfectionist when it comes to your knitting? Like if you knit almost the entire sweater and then you notice one wrong twisted stitch on the bottom, would that bother you?
Yes, but would I correct it? No. Um, I honestly, at this point, I'm like, it's not a Chin Matthews original if there's not a mistake in it, because like I make a mistake with like literally every project I've ever done. I feel like,
Right.
so I try not to stress about it and just hope that it's either on the back or not really that noticeable. But yeah, I am frequently making mistakes. But as I have been knitting more, I've been like trying to learn more how to catch them easier. So even if I do go back, it's not too far. But yeah, there's some things where you just can't um, figure it out
Right.
until after, or you just have to let it go. Yeah.
Well, what can my viewers, right, people who are, hi guys, who are watching it right now, what can they do to help you, your career, to help you meet your goals, to help you achieve your dreams?
Well, feel free to check out my Instagram at Chin, CHIN, the number two, TOG. If you'd like the patterns, feel free to buy them. They're available on Etsy, or excuse me, Ravelry and PayHip, excuse me. And there's links in my bio for that on my Instagram. And yeah, if you make the patterns, make sure to post with the hashtag so I can see all your lovely work on Instagram.
Do you like seeing when people put, and we're gonna put all the links to you on the description of this video so people can find you and like follow you and all that stuff.
Yes.
But when people post the projects on Ravelry,
Uh-huh.
do you like love seeing that? Is it like always a surprise to see that somebody else made it?
Oh yeah, I definitely love seeing products in any space when people post their pictures. It's really fulfilling for me to see that like I made a tangible change kind of like in their life, and they felt good enough about the pattern that they wanted to make it for themselves or for someone that they like a loved one or a friend, whatever. So yeah, it definitely brings me a lot of fulfillment, my designing. And I just love to see it. It just makes my day every time.
Well, I have to say goodbye to you just because it's like the time is flying by and it's been already the hour that I wanted to do it.
Sure.
But I
No problem.
congratulate you on your pattern. It's like so
Thank
amazing
you.
to see. It's like it's huge achievement to have that sweater. Like I feel like sweaters is like the graduation in design world, it's like when you brave the grading. And I
Yeah.
hope it sells really well. I hope it people appreciate all the hard work you put into it and your testers and all. And I can't wait to see what else you're gonna come up with. And I hope
Yes.
I hope
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our time together.
Thank you.